Okay, so your mum laughed and said you might get a red-headed boy. And what
That's
happened?
exactly what we got. And me not knowing, of course, that Stan's granddad had been red, and that's where it had been a throwback from him. But because John was so big, he was 9, 12 3/4, I had to get some assistance. I had what they called a mid-cavity or something, a forceps thing. So a doctor had to deliver that. And I can hear his voice to this day. He said, "You've got a lovely wee boy." And I went, "Are you sure?" He says, "I'm pretty good at telling the difference."
And was Grandad there for this labour?
No.
Still not allowed in?
Just outside, in the hospital, but outside,
he would see me He would see me at night or whenever.
Wow.
No. Oh no, you didn't. Oh no.
No.
Nobody went in these days. Oh,
Not even your
God.
mum, or?
No. Oh no, you didn't have a birthing partner. No. No. Nobody had.
Right.
Nobody had. No.
How times have changed.
I don't know when that started, birthing partners, but certainly wasn't 60 years ago when John was born. Or even James was born 65 years ago. No, you
So
just
got
had to
this
phone
near-
up and
near-
say, phone again, you know, they just had to wait. You got taken in labour and you just had to,
Had to wait for the
had
call.
to wait. There was no phones, there was no mobiles or anything.
And then when Grandad, so you got this near £10
Oh,
red-headed baby, and what did Grandad say when he seen him?
Sounds absolutely right. And he was lovely. And then, of course, my mum just doted on him, completely doted on him. So did my
Oh.
dad. And
Any significance to the name?
John, well, that was John's. We always said if we had a son, it would be after Stan's dad, and if it was a girl, it would be after my mum.
Right.
Oh.
So
Okay.
that's how it went. Yeah.
Right.
So that's why it was called
And
John.
has he got a middle name?
No.
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 Oh, that's nice. So.
Oh dear, yeah. So that was.
And what was Dad like? As like a baby and a toddler?
He was John, we didn't get John home right away. He was, because he'd had quite a bad birth, he was transferred to the children's ward for a few weeks actually.
Oh,
I had to just go back and forth and feed him, bottle feed him.
Did you get sent home, or did you get to
I
stay
got
in?
home,
Uh-huh.
but he didn't, he got transferred because I think they said it was just because he'd had a stormy delivery and he wasn't too well. And so he was in for quite a few weeks in the children's ward before. So I mean, that was twice I had to walk out of that maternity without a
your
child.
baby.
Really. Yeah.
I was going to say, see, when you were having Dad, I mean, having gone through the experience before, was your fear like heightened, like is this going to happen again?
Oh yeah.
Because if you don't have scans and you don't,
I know.
Did you
That
feel
was-
any different though? Could you
No,
feel
well,
that
I
like
was-
moving and
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was getting to begin with, you're very, very nervous, but after the first 3 months or so, and then, but then as things just kept progressing, it just kept getting bigger, and I knew it was.
And did you just
I
go
was
to
okay.
full term then with Dad?
I
Was
went full
big
term.
baby, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
he was 10 days overdue actually.
Was it?
Yeah, he was due in Hogmanay. Didn't come to the
Was
9th
he?
of January.
January,
So yeah. So that was that, and then
And how
we would have
hands-on?
wanted more, but we never had any
Just
more.
didn't
luck.
happen.
No, it didn't
And back
happen.
then, how hands-on was Grandad, or was it? Was
Aye,
it maybe not too hands-on?
I
when-
didn't. I can't remember that. Oh, he was helpful, I suppose, but I don't. He was helpful. We stayed all the time. John was still in the PRI. We stayed at my mum's house. We didn't go back to the high street because she felt I needed a bit of support. With John being in the hospital and the children's ward. So we were quite a few weeks at my mum's, stayed at my mum's. And then But yeah, he was good. He was always off a good with John. Aye, he was fine. Aye. John and his dad had quite a good relationship. Yeah.
How did you take to motherhood?
Aye, I was fine. Yeah, I was good. But and I always had him absolutely perfectly dressed, and I was always knitting new little, like we used to, when we lived in the high street, that clothes is still there. I must go down and have a look up. That would be John's bedroom, that would be a look, because his was up, we were upstairs in that house. And it was just, the workshop was underneath our living room. And Jenny was her name, the girl in the office, which was right next to the workshop, Hosie's workshop. And I could bring Stan would lift John's pram or bump it down the steps in the morning and leave it just outside Jenny's office. And I would just then have to carry John down, put him in, and I could leave him there all afternoon. And people would pass, and Jenny would see him from the window, like, it was just out there, but it was so safe. And you know,
So you just left?
And Jenny would say, oh, Eileen, that's another always, because I had the pram immaculate. It was a black and silver cross pram, and I had him just absolutely beautifully dressed and clean and whatnot. And he got a lot of admirers. Jenny used to tell, but she could see it through the window right enough. But it was quite safe to leave him out in the street.
Right.
And that's how safe it was 60 years ago.
But can you imagine if you did that now? Like
Oh,
you
imagine.
wouldn't be able to.
Imagine, no, not. So, but there's a close there. I went, it must have been 3 or 4 years ago, I went into the old high street and I looked up and so that was their living room. And I think, do you remember the Manor house?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think that was Hosie's workshop.
Right.
Here we are.
Well, we must have lived above that then. Or was it just the next wee block along? Was that Sloan's? And then the workshop was the Manor House Sloan's. It was all in, that's all, it was all in there. And our windows were still there. And I went in, and I think at the back of we had to go through the close between the office and the workshop, and then upstairs. And that took us to our house, and then upstairs took us to our bedroom. And I think I went through that close a few years ago, and it showed you right out to the back of the Neuro something, a Red Cross or something. I must go down that way sometime again, park in Medlin Street and walk around there.
And having had a good social life, you and Grandad, how did you then adjust to that and being new parents and?
Well, because we were right above the workshop and we could have music galore and dancing galore if we wanted, it got to the stage where, as I say, the men were in the habit of meeting on a Saturday night. John Keddy, Andy Baxter, Stan and Bill Smeaton. And they would go down to Windsor for a few pints on a Saturday. That would be 4 pints, that would be all they could afford around each. And then they started then one night, I think, going up to the RSC club, and they met up with Henry and Rona Hodge. And that was the first of me getting to really know Rona. They brought Henry and Rona back down to the house. So Rona and I started getting quite friendly. And when the men would go out on a Saturday night, Rona, who had 2 girls, but her aunt or something, don't know, her babysitting, and John Keddy's wife could get babysitters, they would come. Our Saturday nights were very often spent at the high street because we could hear the music on and they could dance and make as much noise as they wanted. So the men would go down to the pub, down to the Windsor, where was in John Street, and come back, and the ladies would go over the road. There was I don't know what it's called now, it was called once a tree or something. There was a grocer shop there, and that was Campbell the grocer, and it sold draft sherry. And you got it out, you took your lemonade bottle over and got you. So we had the audience, and John was sleeping up the stairs sound as anything, but because, or if he was maybe at my mum's, you know. And so our house was really the Saturday
place
night,
to
late
go.
night, aye. So we had an awful lot of
And did you
parties.
socialise with Auntie Kitty much?
No.
No.
Auntie Kitty and Bill, they were different. They didn't. No. I mean, Kitty and I were always friendly enough, but and I would maybe I would go out to my mum's an awful lot during the day with my pram, and because I didn't go back to work till John was, it must have been about 4 or something. I went back for the 4 months holiday relief and then stayed on. So and my mum kept John, and then I worked for the 4 months, and then they kept me on, and I was about a year, and that was full time, like. And Stan says, "Look, this is not on, Ellen. This is no life. I'm coming home to get to put the tatties on, and your mum and dad are flying back and forth and back and forth. If they can't get you a part-time job, then you'll just have to leave." So I think it was about a full year, full time. And then, because I got to know the clinics and all that, Miss Medvin in the physiotherapy department, I used to help her out at her clinics when I was working full time. She decided that because her clinics were getting so big and her staff were having to do a lot of records, keeping records of that she could do with a part-time receptionist. So she applied to get me this part-time job. So that was after a year I got part-time then.
I remember coming to your work.
Aye.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
I
think
Just,
I remember.
you used to come
Like,
in
did
and
the
go on the
children's
bikes.
hospital used to be like
I'd go
across that used to be the children's hospital, the building kind of over.
Over.
Yeah.
And you would go on the
Yeah.
bikes. Mine we had in the physiotherapy department.
Yeah.
We had cycling. Well,
Yeah.
I got into that, and I got 9:15 to 1:15. So I could then, when John did start the school, I could take him along to Cali school and get up for 9:15, and then I was home for him. And so that was
Perfect.
it's
So that worked out.
So you must have been nearing 30 now.
I must have been nearing 30 now, right? Well, yeah. Aye, all these years,
So you were how old?
Just-
27 when Dad was born.
Dad, I would be
27?
20.
28.
62, wait a minute, he was born in 62. I would be
29.
I was
Yeah.
29 when your dad
Yeah.
was born, yeah.
And was that quite late to have? Did a lot of people back then have their kids?
Earlier, yeah.
Yeah.
See, people didn't go out to work when they got married. They didn't go out to work then.
Right.
So they just started the families right away, but because Rona's families were older than mine and John Keddy's and that. Yeah, we were a wee bit late. I mean, we were late in getting married. 25 and 27 was quite
Quite late.
late.
Yeah.
And so that friendship group that you've just made there with Rona and
Margaret.
Margaret,
and Mary
John's wife,
Baxter and that, yeah.
that then stayed with you right
Bill Smeaton's wife.
whole life.
All the way through, all the way through. And we were at all their kids' kind of weddings when they grew up, and they were at all of John's weddings, and all through we had the Saturday nights, and Rona worked in Marks and Spencer. It was great. She used to get all her stuff with discounts off and all that. And yeah,
And you said Dad went to was it a school in Caledonian?
you went to Cali school.
Where was that?
Well, it's opposite where your mum used to work in Perth.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
now it's now housing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. big.
And when you
Scully.
moved to Craigie, did Dad
They got
stay?
the bus. There was the bus.
You just stayed at that school?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, you see, with him being out at my mum's such a lot, all his pals were all out at Moncrief. So when we moved out there, it was great because all these pals were coming in the school bus.
Yeah.
So yeah, and he had Brian. Well, Brian was his best man, and Stevie Park and all them.
Oh, yeah.
They all lived up in Craigie, you see, and they all went to the Carly School, and then they went on
And
to
was
the
there
high.
no school in
We went
Craigie
to
at
the
that
high.
time? Was there no primary school
No,
up there?
there couldn't have been. No, the school bus.
So tell us, because you know his daughters are sat here. What was Dad like as a child then?
Teenager.
As a child.
Tell us some stories about Dad.
As a child. How long have we got?
When you said, first of all, can I
Even
just
said
ask? You know, when you said it, you would like to have had more, but it just didn't happen. Is that just because
we
you
tried?
didn't? You went on contraception. You tried,
No,
but it just
we
didn't.
tried, and it just did not happen.
Right.
And it was really awfully disappointing because you know after 2 years we
Was
wanted
contraception a thing back then?
more.
Was
Aye,
the pill a
yeah,
bit?
oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Oh
It just
my.
didn't
Yeah,
happen.
no, it wasn't the pill.
No.
I just used a shield, you know. And
But there was no pill.
no pill. There was no pills. No.
But you
Oh
did.
no, it was a messy kind of way, but anyway. But no, we tried so hard, and then but not.
So Dad was just always meant to be your
Ah,
baby.
Your special
Yeah.
baby boy,
Yeah.
and your mum and
And
dad
John
just
was absolutely no bother bringing him up, really,
Just easy
until
going.
he got to be maybe about 11 or 12.
So
and
you're at
that.
Glengarry
Eh?
now.
Over at Glengarry, and he was in with all these pals, and they were all nice boys, but they would. The police were at the door once or twice, you know, because they would. Well, there was one particular night that they'd set fire to a bonfire that had been all set up, and they were up the hill, and they went up and they set fire to the damn thing, and we could hear the fire brigades. We wondered what was going on. Anyway, John appeared in, and it wasn't long after that that the police came, and John got an awful kick up the backside that night. No for setting fire, but for getting caught. He said, you could have run a wee bit faster because I think Brian and Stevie and them had all made it away before, but John
and he got
they
caught.
spotted John, aye. And then he met Kathy at 16. They met at a Valentine's dance at 16.
I always thought they met at college, but no.
No,
No.
they met at a Valentine's dance.
So did Dad have girlfriends before that?
No.
Mum was really his
Mum
first
was
girlfriend.
his only girlfriend, aye, yeah. They met at 16, and then I suppose maybe they would start going out maybe serious maybe. And then when did he get a car at 17? I think it was, did you pass your test at 17? Yeah.
Yeah.
We got him his first car at 17, and that was great. That was a great year because he was running Kathy. He was with Kathy, and we felt he was safer with Kathy than he was with these lads.
Yeah.
You know, and it got him through that our difficult time with him.
Yeah.
But then he got fed up with that, of course.
And were they both at college at this point? Together?
Your
were
dad was never at college.
No, he just did
No, he
his
was
like
plumbing.
apprentice.
Aye,
Yeah.
he was plumbing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think your mum worked in British Home Store. I
Yeah.
don't think she was at college.
Did she
was
not work with Sarah Holmesman in BHS, I think?
Aye,
Yeah.
she was at British Home
Uh-huh.
Store. Got married at 19, and you were So they must have got.
I was in the tummy down the aisle.
You were in the tummy 4 months.
Mhm.
4 months down the aisle. Oh, I worked with a girl, and her mum was selling a house in South William Street,
Do you know,
near Matalan.
I can drive past that
And see the
and I
windows.
can remember which corner was the
Yeah,
living room.
aye.
I can remember the kitchen.
Yeah.
I can remember the stone,
Yeah.
twisty
I
public
think
corridor
I was
up
born
to
then
it.
as well. I
Yeah.
don't have any memories because I must have just been a baby.
Right.
And there was an upstairs within it,
Uh-huh.
wasn't there?
Yeah.
Which was my room.
Uh-huh.
Mum and Dad's room was the first as you come in. Next to it was the living room, a big square living room. Then the kitchen was behind that. Let's pause that there then for the births of the grandkids.
Uh-huh.
One more
And we'll come
question
back
about
for the
that.
next.
How old then was your mum and dad, or how old was Dad when your mum and dad died?
John was 7 when my dad died. And then my mum died 6 weeks before you were born.
Oh.
Because I was able to tell, she was at your mum and dad's wedding, and I was able to tell her that John's, you never got a granddaughter, but you've got you never got a granddaughter, but you've got a great
granddaughter.
And she was so happy, and 6 weeks after that she died.
So 6 weeks before.
6 weeks after Michelle was born, my mum died.
Oh, so she did meet Michelle.
But I was able to tell her that that there was a wee girl that John had a wee girl. John's wife had a
And
wee
she
girl.
met her. Yeah.
She held me.
Yeah.
She held you. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so nice.
Right, we'll
That
come
was
back
it.
for the next
Right.